Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson from SeemsGoodMagic.com here, and I'm doing this week's episode of the Mortarpod solo. Jake's having some internet issues, so he's not going to be able to join us this week, but we've got a bunch of Khans of Tarkir spoilers that are brand new, some of which I only briefly looked at, so it's going to be kind of fun. We get to look at them together, sort of explore what the good cards are, how we like the new mechanics and stuff like that. Really interesting set so far, with the multicolor being these brand new color shards that we've really never seen before and are kind of unexplored. So this should be a really fun set, especially for limited. So I'm excited to draft that. It's just a couple more weeks. But yeah, check out SeemsGoodMagic.com. I'm going to have some more tutorial videos for Travelers of Storia, my board game, over the next few weeks. I've got some ideas for tutorial videos that I kind of want to explore. But if you haven't seen the one already, go to travelersofstoria.com. That's STORIA.com, Travelers of Storia. And you can see a bunch of the cards. I have those posted. My first tutorial video, which is about 10.5 minutes long, which kind of explains all of the mechanics and all of that. Kind of throws a lot of information at you at once, but future tutorials are kind of isolate that. I just wanted a tutorial video that kind of encompassed everything that you can experience with the game. But yeah, let's explore this week. We've got the brand new segment. In fact, why don't we do that right now? Make a wish. And I got some cool suggestions from you guys. One of them was Babylon 5, which unfortunately I think I asked Jake about that, and neither of us had ever watched the show, so I apologize that you liked it so much. But we're not going to do Babylon 5 only because I feel like we wouldn't be able to do it justice. I don't know anything about the show really. I think it's just like sci-fi. So I apologize for that. I got like Alien and Game of Thrones, Count of Monte Cristo, some great suggestions. Keep them coming. We're going to get around to those, so don't think that those are forgotten. Definitely those are in the old banks now, so we can call on those when we have to, but I'd still like to see some more suggestions. This week we're doing the Never-Ending Story, and this was suggested by Jess Gomez, so excited to look at these with you guys. But yeah, so basically if you don't know what the Make-A-Wish segment is, all you have to do is suggest a TV show, movie, book, any sort of fiction, entertainment, and Jake and I are going to work on some cards that just as like a mini set of whatever you suggest. So I went ahead this week and made the cards for the Never-Ending Story, so let's jump right into them. We've got Atreyu of the Plains People. He's one colorless, a green, and a white. He's a 3/3 first strike vigilance legendary human warrior. And he has tap, put a legendary 2/3 white horse creature token onto the battlefield named Artax. So if you remember Atreyu, he's employed by the childlike Empress in the story to use Orin and protect Fantasia. I actually had to wiki and look back. I definitely have seen the Never-Ending Story of that age group, but I wanted to make sure that I was being factually correct with these cards too. So I actually put more effort into this than I thought I would, and I was kind of happy with the results. So obviously Atreyu is very powerful. 3 mana, 3/3, first strike vigilance, awesome ability mashup, and he can attack and then spit out a 2/3 white horse. That's a legend. Everybody remembers that classic scene, Artax drowning in the swamp. Yeah, and if you are just an audio listener and you want to see the pictures of these, go to SeemsGoodMagic.com, click on the podcast section, and I've got video podcasts for every podcast we've done. So be sure to check that out if you want to see the pictures and the card templates and all that, because they look cool. They do look very, very nice, I think. Next, we've got Bastion Bucks. I didn't even realize his last name was Bucks and that he had a middle name Balthazar. So I really got to watch the Never-Ending Story again. Oh yeah, and the quote, the flavor text on a tray of the Plains People is, "There is one amongst the Plains People whose name means son of all." and that is what Atreyu means in his people's language. So next we've got Bastian Bux, the main character, the protagonist of the Neverending Story. He's 1 and a white for a 1/1 legendary human creature. And when he enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a card named The Neverending Story, reveal it, then put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So he's a mythic, he's a legendary human, and he's obviously quite good. So he searches up the mythic legendary artifact, the Neverending Story, which I'll get to in a sec. Bastian Bux's flavor text is, "The fate of Fantasia lies in the hands of a boy who doesn't even know it exists." So he's mostly, as you recall in the story, he steals the Neverending Story from the bookstore. So I've got that kind of flavorfully linked up with his card. So the Neverending Story that he fetches up to your hand is a 3-mana legendary artifact. It has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So obviously quite good, searching up any sort of land card from your deck, revealing it, and putting in your hand. And the flavor of it was supposed to be, it's Fantasia is supposedly boundless. So the Neverending Story just constantly is revealing new land and new stories for you to explore. Flavor text on the Neverending Story is, "Make believe I'm everywhere, given in the light. Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story." Let's see if anybody remembers what that quote is recalling or in reference to. Okay, next we have probably my favorite card, Falkor the Luck Dragon. Everybody remembers Falkor, the cool hound dragon, which is what his creature type is. He's 2 colorless, 2 white, and a blue for a 5/5 hound dragon legendary creature. His abilities are, creatures you control have flying, and if another creature you control would die, you may return that creature and Falkor the Luck Dragon to your hand instead. And his flavor text is, having a Luck Dragon with you is the only way to go on a quest. It's actually a line he has in that story. So obviously quite powerful legendary dragon creature. 5 mana, 5/5 flying, efficient, gives all your creatures flying, and if a creature you would have die, you can bounce him and that creature to save it. So, pretty cool. The Childlike Empress. Obviously, everybody remembers her, another of the protagonists in the story, the Empress of Fantasia. She is a white and a blue for a 1/1 legendary human. Basically, I just made mythics for this little mini set. I didn't mess around with commons or uncommons or anything like that. So she's a white and a blue 1/1 legendary human. And she has, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control permanents named Bastian Bux, Atreyu of the Plains People, and Orin, Amulet of Fantasia, you win the game. And then her flavor text is, "Call my name, Bastian, please save us." Remember that from the story. It was at the end. It was when Bastian finally figured out that he was indeed part of the Neverending Story and that he could communicate with the people within the story. So, kind of cool reference to that, and she's obviously a very powerful card. You just mix all of your little mythics out, and you win the game at the beginning of your upkeep. Next, we have Orin, Amulet of Fantasia. So this is a legendary artifact equipment. It's a 1-mana equipment card, and it has equipped creature is indestructible. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a card named the Childlike Empress and or an Amulet of Fantasia is attached to another creature, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, and you can equip it for 1. So that flavorfully is in reference to the fact that the Childlike Empress, when she gave Atreyu or an Amulet of Fantasia, it was her sort of willing it to him and giving it to him that gave Orin power. So the flavor of it is when you have the express permission of the Childlike Empress to use Orin as Atreyu did. So when it's attached to somebody, you get these infinite wishes, and the wishes are what's letting you search your library every turn for a card and put it in your hand. So thought that was cool. But these are the protagonists of the set. Now let's go to the antagonists. We have Gmork, Servant of the Nothing. He's a 5-mana, 4/3 legendary wolf shapeshifter creature. And he has a mechanic I made up called Doom. And Doom is, at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent exiles a permanent he or she controls. So, pretty powerful and little bit similar to Annihilator a little bit, I guess, except you don't have to attack to make them exile. You just every turn renewable. Pretty good ability, I thought. And then finally we have The Nothing Cometh. This is 7 colorless and 3 black sorcery. Exile all permanents in black. And it's a mythic. And the flavor text on it as the people lost their hopes and forgot their dreams, the nothing grew ever stronger. And the flavor text on Gmork, Servant of the Nothing, is, the emptiness and despair is destroying this world, and I am here to help it. I don't know if you noticed, but in the movie, Atreyu defeats Gmork with his little stone dagger. So I thought I would connect that by making Atreyu a 3/3 first strike and Gmork a 4/3. So he could kill him in a fight. I thought that was cool. All right, so that was the first Make-A-Wish segment. And yeah, I'd like to do it, if not every week, maybe every other week, depending on if I can put enough time into it. So feel free to suggest more. This was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed those cards. All right, so now let's get to the Khans of Tarkir spoilers. We've got quite a bit to get through. I've sorted it by color again. We'll go white, blue, black, red, and green, and then multicolor land and artifact. So let's jump right into it. It's a fun looking set already. Okay, so first we have End Hostilities. This is 3 and 2 white sorcery, a rare. Destroy all creatures and all permanents attached to creatures. So this is nice because it takes out the Theros block bestow creatures. And for older formats, it's kind of cool because it takes out all the living equipment, or more specifically, I guess, Batterskull. So it's kind of cool that it does that. It destroys equipment and stuff too. So it's nice that it gets rid of equipment, it gets rid of bestow. Seems like a pretty reasonable card. Definitely going to be very powerful and limited. Next we have Suspension Field. 1 and a white enchantment. It's an uncommon. When Suspension Field enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature with toughness 3 or greater until Suspension Field leaves the battlefield. So not quite as good as Journey to Nowhere. In fact, significantly worse, since Journey to Nowhere, I believe, was a common as well, and let you exile any creature. So this really only lets you deal with fatties, which makes it not quite as good at all, really, for the control decks at all, since they, I would think, primarily would want to do it on littler dudes. But it's okay. It still deals with fatties. It's certainly going to see some constructed play. I have no doubt about that. So at least some more likely some sideboard play. But still, I'm sure it's absolutely fine for. I'm sure it's actually quite good for limited. It's a removal spell that's not too specific. Most people are going to be running creatures with toughness 3 or greater. I'm sure, for example, we've got in M15 the I can't recall the name, but it's Pillar of something, and it's 2 and a white, and it exiles creatures with toughness 4 or greater, and that sees play. So I'm sure Suspension Field will see some play as well. Next we have Watcher of the Roost. This is 2 and a white for a 2/1 flying bird soldier. It has when Watcher of the Roost is turned face up, you gain 2 life. And it has morph, reveal a white card in your hand. So you pay your 3, you morph it, and then all you have to do, this is part of a cycle of cards that you can just unmorph by revealing a card of their color from your hand. So a 2/1 flyer, and when it turns face up, you gain 2 life. That's not bad. And you're obviously motivated to morph with it since you get to gain the 2 life. I think that's a pretty highly playable card, definitely. Very good in battles of attrition, where you're going back and forth. Sometimes that 2 life gain can really mean a world of difference. So pretty good. And finally, in white, we have Wingmate Rock, which is 3 and 2 white bird creature. It's a mythic rare. It has flying, and it has raid. So when it enters the battlefield, if you attacked, you get to put a 3/4 white bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. So pretty cool card. Doesn't feel super mythic, but it certainly is a strong card. Paying 5 mana to get 2, 3, 4 flyers if you've attacked with something is huge, and the fact that it gains life for all your attackers for following turns is pretty powerful. So it's absolutely without a doubt a limited bomb. I don't quite think it's necessarily a constructed playable card, but it's certainly a limited bomb. All right. Next, we have blue cards. This first one I'm pretty excited about. It's called Clever Impersonator. It's 2 and 2 blue uh, for a shapeshifter mythic rare creature. And you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. So, pretty unique clone effect, absolutely. Copying, banishing lights, copying planeswalkers, bomb creatures, all over the board. Really utility artifacts. This is really an insane card. I had to check the pre-order price on it because I think without a shadow of a doubt this is going to be a highly played clone effect for standard at least. But very cool card. It's pre-ordering a playset, I believe, is $67 or something like that. So whatever the math is on that, close to um, what is the math on that? A little more than six. It's like $16 or $17 a pop, something like that. It's pretty expensive. Now I think about it, but that is a powerful effect. Next we have Dragon's Eye Savants. This is 1 in a blue human wizard creature. It's a 0/6, and you can unmorph it by revealing a blue card in your hand, so it's part of that cycle. And when it's turned face up, you get to look at a target opponent's hand. So 0/6 wall with the morph ability, so it can double as a beater, and then it lets you peek when it unmorphs. I think it's a pretty good card. You know, 0/6s in limited aren't always useful, but the fact that this can also be a morph creature is quite good. It's nice that he can beat down and then eventually turn into a nice wall. So I think the utility of him alone makes him a pretty fine card. Next we have Icy Blast. This is a 1 blue and an X instant rare. It's tap X target creatures, and then it has Ferocious. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, those creatures that you tap don't untap during their controller's next untap steps. So definitely a limited bomb. Is it going to see constructed play? I doubt it. Ferocious doesn't seem like a card or a mechanic that's likely to break through to constructed. It's just a bit too narrow, especially since this is in blue, which primarily isn't about fat creatures. But for limited, this is definitely a house card. Since it's instant speed, your turn, tap down your dudes. My turn, attack in. Your guys don't untap. It's absolutely brutal effect, and I think that's gonna steamroll some people in limited. Next we have Keru Spell Snatcher. This is 3 and a blue, 3/3 Naga wizard creature, and it has morph. It unmorphs for 4 and 2 blue. And when it's turned face up, you get to counter target spell. And if that spell is countered this way, you get to exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. And you may cast that card without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. So, pretty cool card. Lets you counter, and you get to exile it and play it if you counter it that way. I think it's a pretty high value card. I would value it very highly in limited, absolutely. And it's not until end of turn either, so you get any turn to really cast the card for free. I think it's a great card. That's very cool and looks fun. Okay, for black, we have Bitter Revelation. This is 3 and a black sorcery. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, and you lose 2 life. So you might be thinking, well, it's a lot like Read the Bones, or why would I want to play this over Sign in Blood? Well, it turns out this format has Delve in it, so this is actually a very beneficial effect, putting the cards in your graveyard. And you get to look at the top 4 and take the best 2. So this is definitely going to be an awesome limited card, I think. So especially if Delve is very powerful and limited, which I would expect it to be if you have any sort of self mill. And this is just nice because not only do you get card advantage through it, but you get making your Delve spells cheaper. So I like it quite a bit for limited. Next, we have Empty the Pits. This is 4 black and 2x, so quite expensive. It's a mythic. It's also an instant. And it has Delve. And if you don't know what Delve is, it's each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1 colorless of the spell. And you get to put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped. So it's pretty cool. It basically turns any card in your graveyard into half of a zombie. So this is actually kind of a step away from what I'm used to seeing with this effect. Usually, if you want to make zombies from cards in graveyards, those cards have to be creatures. So it's very interesting to see a card that makes them at instant speed. And the weird thing is that it makes them enter-tapped. So you can't use the zombies as blockers or surprise blockers, which kind of begs the question, then why is it an instant? But there is still benefit to it being an instant. End of turn effect, if they're not expecting you to suddenly have, 4 or 5 zombies out of nowhere, that's going to be quite powerful. So I do actually think Empty the Pits is a pretty legitimate limited card, despite being extremely color intensive. Like, I would think you'd have a very hard time playing Empty the Pits outside of a mono black deck, but which I guess would be the argument for not playing it, because it does seem like this set is going to be very multicolor intensive. But we also haven't seen all the fixing yet, so maybe 4 black is a little more realistic than I'm giving it credit for. We're just not sure yet. But for the most part, 3 and 4 colored mana in the mana cost means card is pretty restrictive. Next we have Raiders Spoils. This is 3 and a black enchantment. It's an uncommon. Creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever a warrior you control deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 1 life. If you do, draw a card. This card's really cool. I don't know how many warriors there are yet. I expect there's quite a bit if they're making a card that interacts positively with it, but what I really like about this card is it buffs all of your creatures. It's not, in attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. It's all of your creatures get the buff, and then there's just an additional buff if you have warriors, which is quite a good one, actually, drawing cards, even if you have to pay the life. I think Raider Spoils is a very highly pickable card. I would go as far to say you could easily first pick it. I know that might seem maybe unreasonable, but that's a powerful effect. Giving all your creatures +1/+0, if you're running like an 18 to 20 creature deck, that's some very nice benefit. So I'm a big fan of Raider Spoils. I think it's good. Next we have Ruthless Ripper. This is a 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch Human Assassin. It's an uncommon, and it has Morph, reveal a black card in your hand, and when it's turn face up, target player loses 2 life. So tons of very readily apparent benefits from this. It's a 1/1 Death Touch for 1, so it's already better than Typhoid Rats, or the same as Typhoid Rats, but the fact that it's got the Morph means you get the surprise blocks out of it, and when you turn it face up, they lose 2 life. Just tons of benefit to this card. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Very awesome card. Very highly pickable, I expect. Okay, next we're moving to red spells here. We've got Crater's Claws. This is 1 red and X sorcery. It's a rare. Crater's Claws deals X damage to target creature or player, so kind of like a Caravex Torch on the top end, and then it has Ferocious. It deals X +2 damage to that creature or player instead if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So actually, even though it's a pretty good effect, it's kind of an unexciting Ferocious. Basically, it just makes your burn spell 2 better if you control a big creature. Not to say that that's completely negligible. I would still say it's very cool in limited. I just don't think this necessarily breaks through to constructed just based on that Ferocious ability. So far, Ferocious not super exciting. It's a mechanic that works, and there's obviously some benefit to it, especially in limited, but it doesn't, I don't know, it's not like breaking new boundaries to me, but it's okay. Crater's Claws is going to be very good in limited, absolutely. That style of effect is always very powerful. Horde Ambusher. Next, we have a 1 and a red 2/2 Human Berserker. It's an uncommon. Whenever it blocks, it deals 1 damage to you, so it's got a downside. And it unmorphs by revealing a red card in your hand. And then when it's turned face up, target creature can't block this turn. So what's strange is if you block with it as it's morphed and then unmorph it, you don't lose you don't get dealt 1 damage. It's just when it's face up and you block with it. So there is that nice little benefit of it. I'm a little bit surprised they felt it needed the downside, but I suppose they just felt like it was too good in limited, being able to get rid of a blocker on the unmorph ability and then still be able to block without any punishment. So a little bit surprising that they gave it the drawback, but I guess for the most part, red creatures aren't exactly the most efficient or good. So maybe the fact that it's a 2-mana 2/2, most of the time they're 2-mana 2/1s, as we'll see very shortly. But yeah, I think this is a fantastic card. If you're playing something aggressive, that would just very quickly defeat people. Absolutely. In multiples, I could see that card getting crazy. Next, we have Howl of the Horde, 2 and a red, rare sorcery. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. And then it's got raid, so if you attacked with a creature, you get to copy that spell one additional time. So really, you would get like a triple lightning strike or something if you had 5 mana. I think the real issue with this card is just price. At the minimum, you're really going to be paying like 5 mana to get the full value that you want. So I think the fact that it's so expensive is kind of its downside, unfortunately. But still a cool effect and certainly something that looks like it would be fun in Commander. A lot of fun in Commander. But it is also your instants and sorcery spells only, which also makes it much more narrow. There's quite a few cards, I can't cite any offhand, but that get to copy you or your opponents. And those cards are a lot of time much better. So the fact that this is a little bit narrow, being able to only target your own, makes it a little bit worse. But still a cool effect nonetheless. Okay, next we have War Name Aspirant. This is a 1 and a red, 2/1 uncommon human warrior creature. And it has raid when it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you attacked with a creature. So 2 mana 3/2 if you've attacked already. So a good post-combat play. And then it also can't be blocked by creatures with power 1 or less. So quite good, actually. Can't be, can't be blocked by creatures power 1 or less is actually very nice already. But the fact that it can enter as a 3/2, I like that card quite a bit too for limited. I think that's going to be a great aggressive card. Not entirely convinced it's constructed worthy, unfortunately, but certainly limited worthy. And finally, in red, we have Jeering Instigator. This is a 1 and a red, 2/1 rare goblin rogue creature. And it has morph. It unmorphs for 2 and a red. And when it's turn face up, if it's your turn, you get to gain control of another creature. Untap that creature, it gains haste. Very, very, very strong card. I can see some blowout times with Jeering Instigator. We've seen so many morph dudes already. You're never really going to know if you're playing against red if they're going to have that. I see that style of effect just like dominating. Think if you had a morphed Horde Ambusher and a morphed Jeering Instigator for 3 mana, you get to reveal a red, and revealing a red card in your hand, you get to make a thing not block and steal another creature. So just extremely powerful limited card. I actually think Jeering Instigator to me could be good enough for constructed. Absolutely. The fact that you get a creature body on it too, I think that's absolutely constructed playable. Okay. Next we have Hardened Scales. This is a 1 green enchantment. It's a rare. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters. That many +1/+1 counters. So it's a lot of ones being said, are placed on it instead. So basically, it just doubles the amount of +1/+1 counters that are put on creatures you control when you put them on. This very beneficial alongside Outlast, which I believe is its intention. Happens to also work with some of the raid spells, like the one we saw that gets the +1/+1 counter. So a bit narrow, and it's rare. I don't think this is a first pick necessarily, but a cool card nonetheless because if you have enough Outlast guys, being able to double the amount of +1/+1 counters is definitely strong. Next we have See the Unwritten. This is 4 and 2 green. It's a mythic sorcery. Reveal the top 8 cards of your library, and you can put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, and you get to put the rest into your graveyard. So excellent with Delve, and the fact that you get a essentially free creature. Not really free since you're paying 6 mana, but you get to get a choice. And in limited, in a 40-card deck, think about it. You start the game with 33 cards in your deck remaining after you draw your 7 cards. 8 cards is a lot of your deck. You're going to hit some creatures for sure. So that's a cool effect. I actually think because of that, it's probably limited playable. I can see some issues with it since milling 8's not always easy, but I think that's a definitely powerful effect. And it also has Ferocious. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you get to put 2 creatures onto the battlefield instead of 1. So that alone makes it just bonkers. Really cool card. I'd love to see this. I actually think this could see some constructed play, believe it or not. There's just some insane creatures that you'd like to cheat out. So I think See the Unwritten has a very good chance of being some sort of weird constructed deck. Just have to, I guess I'll have to look closely over the creatures you'd want to cheat out. But I can think of a few that would be pretty cool that you'd want to do. I guess we'll see them when we get to them in the multicolor section. But finally, in green, we have Temor or Temur Charger. It's a 1 and a green 3/1 horse creature, and it's uncommon. And when it's turned face up, target creature gains trample until end of turn, and you get to unmorph it by revealing a green card in your hand. So this is a cool card too. I like it. Attack, they block with a 3 toughness guy or a 2 or 1 toughness guy, and you want to trample over. And you can give trample randomly to some other fatty that you have, surprise style. So I actually like this. I think it's a very good card, and it trades up. It surprise trades up too for a relatively cheap price. I like it. Good card. Okay, so now we're moving on to the multicolor cards that have been spoiled since we last talked. We've got Abzan Ascendancy. This is a white, a black, and a green, so junk colors. It's a rare enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. This card is very strong. I absolutely think this is going to be a snap first pick in Limited. Actually, I guess I can't comfortably say that yet because I just don't know how good the fixing is yet. Multicolor has a chance to be hard to cast, especially the 3-color spells, depending on how good the fixing is. But the effect is certainly worthy of first pick. I just don't know. I mean, the effect is so strong. Any of your guys dying, you're getting evasive dudes, and it buffs your guys when it first comes in. That's a really powerful card. I like that a lot. I think you'd probably still want to first pick it and see if you can't make it work. I have a feeling if fixing is good enough, you might even see some nasty little 5-color decks, which seems like it would be a lot of fun. Next, we have Anafenza the Foremost. This is also junk colors. It's a mythic rare legendary human soldier. It's a 4/4. When it attacks, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on another target tapped creature you control. And then if a creature card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you get to exile it. So still pretty good. Hyper efficient, 3 mana 4/4. And every time it attacks, it buffs another creature you control that's attacking likely, or has used Outlast or something like that. So I like this guy. Definitely good. Probably not good enough for constructed, but absolutely good enough for limited. Next is a card I think is really cool. It's called Ankle Shanker. It's 2 colorless, a red, a white, and a black, and it's a Goblin Berserker. It's a rare. It has haste, and when it attacks, creatures you control gain first strike and death touch. So very, very strong card. All of your guys basically become unkillable, or at least have to trade with another first striker, double striker. Very powerful. Very, very powerful card. Pretty color intensive, and it is a 5 mana 2/2, but that's a crazy surprise card. I think you know, I'm not 100% it's going to see constructed play just because I haven't seen what can be done with it yet in terms of, you know, what kind of early armies you want to assemble to get up to 5 mana. But for limited, absolutely, this card is going to be very difficult to beat if you don't have removal immediately. Next we have Avalanche Tusker. This is a 5 mana. It's a 2, a green, a blue, and a red, 6/4 Elephant Warrior creature. It's a rare, and it has, whenever it attacks, target creature defending player controls blocks it this combat if able. Not a big fan of this card. I don't feel like that effect is rare. If it could only be blocked by one creature, like the Charging Rhino, I think this card would be much better, because then you could just control what you want to kill. But I think that because they can just multi-block it, it doesn't have evasion, it doesn't have trample. I'm not a big fan of this card. At the very least, I felt like it should be an uncommon. That makes more sense to me since it's actually color intensive to cast. It feels like an uncommon. It feels like it should have one more ability at rare, just because that one is just a bit underwhelming. Next, we have a pretty cool and exciting card. It's 3 colorless, a blue, a red, and a white, so America colors. And it's a rare instant, and it's called Flying Crane Technique. Untap all creatures you control. Creatures you control gain flying and double strike until end of turn. So very crazy. Limited bomb. That's just going to straight up win. That basically reads win the game if you have creatures. That's a super strong effect. And I love that you can use it defensively too for just like the ultimate blowout play. So just absolutely limited bomb. Is it good enough for constructed? I doubt it. Even though it's a very powerful effect and you get to untap all your creatures. In that respect, it almost looks like it was made to be played for defensive purposes, but I think it's much more likely you'd like to fly over top and double strike into their face with it. So very cool limited card. I don't expect to see it in constructed. Next we have Mantis Rider, a blue, a red, and a white rare human monk. It has flying, vigilance, and haste, and it's a 3/3. Very efficient card. I think this could actually see constructed play. The fact that it's got vigilance means it can block, which is very good against the aggressive decks. It gets to attack in right away. It's just got good value. Evasiveness, blocking, haste. 3, just an excellent ability mashup, and a good price for power and toughness ratio. So great card. I think this could actually break through to constructed, definitely. Finally, for this multicolor page, we've got Mardu Ascendancy. This is a red, a white, and a black enchantment. It's a rare. Whenever a non-token creature you control attacks, you get to put a 1/1 red goblin creature token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. And then you get to sacrifice it, and creatures you control get +0/+3 until end of turn. So, very strong card. Once again, awesome. I've been really happy with these rare enchantments. I think they're very powerful. Just spitting out goblins every time your non-token creatures attack, that's going to add up quick. And the fact that on top of that, it turns into a instant, a combat trick out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but combat trick that's always sitting there that they have to think about and play around. So just an excellent, excellent card. I think that's very good and once again, probably worthy of first pick. Okay, next we have Rakshasa Vizier. And this is 2 colorless, a black, a green, and a blue for a 4/4 rare cat demon creature. It has whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from your graveyard, you get to put that many +1/+1 counters on Rakshasa Vizier. So a little bit situational, narrow, but pretty cool nonetheless. If you use a delve with it, that's obviously where it shines the most. So I think it's a cool card. It's certainly worthy of playing in limited. I don't know if Delve is going to be quite good enough for this to see any sort of constructed play. It doesn't have trample or anything, so it still can be chump blocked or death touched all day. But it's still a cool effect if you have enough Delve in your deck. I think the issue with Delve is it doesn't really lend itself well to a lot of Delve being played in your deck. Once you've used Delve, it's kind of like a one-time effect that you get to use it. So having a bunch of Delve isn't actually that good. Next we have Sage of the Inward Eye. This is 2 colorless, blue, red, and a white for a 3/4 rare Gen Wizard creature. It has flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. Fantastic spell. It flies, giving all your guys lifelink every time you do non-creature spell. That doesn't seem that difficult. Very strong card. It gives itself lifelink as well. So I like that a lot. I think it's a great card. Very worthy of limited, probably not constructed. Next we have Sagu Mauler. 4 a green and a blue for a 6/6 trample hexproof, which is a great ability mashup. It also has a morph in which you pay 3 a green and a blue to unmorph it. So I like the morph on it because it's got the hexproof. So if your opponent wants to, say, burn it, you get to unmorph it and protect it. And if your opponent wants to block it with, say, a 5/5, you get to unmorph it and trample over top as well as have hexproof. So very powerful. Also, keep in mind that unmorphing doesn't actually go on the stack when you pay unmorph. It just happens. So hexproof is actually something that even beats split second. So, for example, they use sudden death on it. You could still unmorph it and it would have hexproof. Even though sudden death wouldn't kill it. I guess that was a bad example, but still, you get the idea. That's how good Morph is. It doesn't even go on the stack. You can bypass split second. I definitely expect that. That could even possibly see constructed play, mostly because hexproof is so powerful. If it's just a deck that has spot removal, I could see that being insane. But we'll have to see. I'm not sure yet. Next we have Savage Knuckleblade. This is a green, a blue, and a red for a 4/4 Ogre Warrior, rare Ogre Warrior creature. It has 3 activated abilities, 2 in a green. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. You can only do it once a turn. It has 2 in a blue. You get to bounce it to its hand. And then it has red. It gains haste. So still a very cool card. All 3 abilities are very beneficial. I like the ability to bounce it, so you don't have to worry about it getting killed by spot removal. Pumping it so it can take out up to 6 toughness guys. And then haste, so you can pay 4 mana and basically attack for 4 with it right away. I like it. Very cool card. Will it see constructed play? I don't know, perhaps. There's a chance. It's efficient, and the fact that you get to bounce it so it even bypasses the global wipe effects makes it, in my opinion, pretty good. I think this is a very powerful card, actually. Savage Knuckleblade has a chance to break through to constructed. Absolutely. Next is a card I'm really excited about. I'd like to make this card work if possible. It's called Sidisi Brood Tyrant. It's 4 mana, 1 colorless, a black, a green, and a blue for a 3/3 mythic rare legendary Naga Shaman. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. And whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, you get to put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Note how well this mashes up with the See the Unwritten. What I like about it is, even though you won't get the Ferocious, it puts all the rest of the cards in your graveyard. So if you already have Sidisi out, it's very cool that you'd get that many zombies for each other creature that you milled. Anyway, I think it's cool. I think Sidisi is a very powerful card. If you have enough creatures in your deck, I think she could pull her weight in value very quickly. Come out, potentially give you 3 zombies, attack, potentially give you 3 more. Obviously, that's best case scenario, but even getting 1 zombie off of her mill each time is very nice. Very cool card. I like it a lot. Next, we have a new Planeswalker, Sorin Solemn Visitor. He's 2 colorless, a white, and a black. Mythic Sorin Planeswalker, comes in with 4 loyalty, has +1 until your next turn. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain lifelink. -2 loyalty, put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield. -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacks a creature. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of Sorin Solemn Visitor for a couple reasons. To me, it's too close to the last Sorin Lord of Innistrad. Not only are they the same exact mana cost, they both make creatures, they both have effects that buff your creatures and give lifelink of a sort. I guess that's my main issue with it. The other Sorin got to blow up permanents. This one makes them sack creatures every turn. So in that respect, they're a little bit different. But I just like the Lord of Innistrad better. I like the pooping out the tokens while pumping it up rather than negging your Planeswalker to spit out tokens. I think the +1 loyalty effects that give you creatures have, historically been amazing. Like Elspeth, the original. Knight Errant, yeah, I mean, just incredible. So this one, I mean, of course you're going to play it in limited. Will it see constructed play? Honestly, it could because it makes evasive tokens, but I just think I liked the other Sorin better. I liked plussing. I liked the emblem effect more, where even if they took care of your Sorin, if you emblem it already, your creatures are just permanently huge. It was just excellent with the token strategies at the time. So this one, not really breaking new ground, and I guess that's my big problem with it. I know I complain a lot about Planeswalkers because historically I complained about them being too strong. Now I'm complaining about them not being different enough and, sometimes too weak or not a place for them, which was my argument for Sarkhan. So I guess I don't know what I want from Planeswalkers. I like Planeswalkers. I think they're a cool, card type. It was very creatively made. I just don't quite know the direction, the design space where they're best, and I think Wizards is having some issues with that, and they're still sort of feeling around where the new generation of Planeswalkers really needs to go. Finally, we have Sultai Ascendancy. This is a black, a green, and a blue enchantment, a rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any amount of them into your graveyard, and the rest on top of your library in any order. So this is nice since it feeds your delve, or alternatively increases your card quality and makes it better. So I like it. Very good. Very cool cards. Finally, 2 more multicolor cards here. We've got Utter End. This is a cool one. 2, a white and a black, instant speed, rare, and it's exile target non-land permanent. So close to Vindicate. Can't hit lands like Vindicate could, but the fact that it's instant speed, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of mid-range and control decks rocking Utter End. There's certainly enough value on there where I think it's constructed playable. Absolutely. Probably as a 2 of. It looks like a 2 of card for sure. 1 of in some of those Esper controls, you know. And then finally, Mind Swipe, which is a blue and a red and X, instant speed, rare. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X. Mind Swipe deals X damage to that spell's controller. So it's cool because even if you can't successfully counter the spell, it still gets to burn the controller. Is it a slam first pick? Maybe. In limited, the fact that it's a counter and a burn, or a late game just burn as soon as they cast a spell, I think it's going to be interesting in limited if you know your opponent has Mind Swipe and it's super late game and they have 1 card left in hand. It's really going to make you question whether you want to play any spells. So it's certainly an interesting card, and I like it. I'm just not convinced 100% it's slam first pick. It's a bit narrow in that regard, but I still think it's a very powerful effect since you can kill people with it and counter spells. So it's versatile, it's interesting, I like it. Finally, we've got artifacts and lands. We have Frontier Bivouac, which is the into the battlefield tapped land that gives you green, blue, and red. We have Opulent Palace, which gives you black, green, and blue. And we have Sandstep Citadel, which gives you white, black, and green. Cool land cycle, like I said. Shards of Alara block had these as well, and they were all very highly playable in not only limited, but constructed. So I suspect that these could break way to constructed as well for those multicolor decks. The 2 new artifacts that have been spoiled, Ugin's Nexus, 5 mana legendary artifact. It's a mythic. If a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. And then if Ugin's Nexus would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile it and take an extra turn after this one. So kind of an interesting idea. They had to put that first text on there, the if a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead, so you couldn't go Ugin's Nexus, Ugin's Nexus, Ugin's Nexus. Once you've taken your first extra turn, you have to wait another turn before you can use Ugin's Nexus again. So kind of their way to limit the fact that it's a colorless way to take extra turns. So very interesting card, very, very interesting card. I'd like to see more of it. I'd definitely like to see more of it. What's interesting is if you play it in multiples, with the new legendary rule, you sacrifice the old one, then you get to take an extra turn. Then the turn after that, you play another Ugin's Nexus and you get to take another extra turn. So it really does make sense why they did the if a player would begin an extra turn, skips that turn instead. Otherwise, just if you had enough Ugin's Nexus, you get to just keep playing turns. It's a little too good. Very interesting card with cards like Trading Post, stuff like that. So very cool. And then Ghostfire Blade, which is a rare equipment spell. It's a 1 mana equipment. It gives equipped creature +2/+2. It equips for 3, but its equip ability costs 2 less to activate if it targets a colorless creature. So very good with not only artifact creatures, but specifically for this block, morph creatures. So I suspect Ghostfire Blade is a very easy snap first pick since all morph spells, regardless of color, are playable. as 3-mana 2/2 creatures. So good to keep in mind. That's it for the spoilers this week. I hope you're digging it. I'd love to see some more suggestions for the Make-A-Wish set. That was a lot of fun to make. I suspect next week we're going to be doing more Khans of Tarkir spoilers, so as soon as we've got the full spoiler up, we're going to get back to the cyclical evolutions and weird harvests from the past. But until then, check out seemsgoodmagic.com. I've still been posting daily M15 drafts. I appreciate all the comments on that. Keep watching and looking for tutorials for the board game Travelers of Storia. Visit travelersofstoria.com for information on that. And other than that, just tune into Mortarpod. And I'd love to hear some more suggestions from you guys. So we'll see you next week.